You are not born a gladiator. You are sold into it. The year is ancient Rome. Your village is gone. Your name no longer matters. Around your neck, iron. Around your wrists, chains. And in front of you, men arguing over your price. Not your freedom, your price. Because in Rome, a slave was not a person. A slave was property. And today, someone is about to buy you. But what happened next is far darker than most people imagine. The fighting is over. Not because peace arrived, but because your side lost. The smoke still hangs over what used to be your home. Broken shields cover the ground. The wounded are left behind. And the Roman soldiers are no longer hunting enemies. They are counting survivors. Because in Rome, victory did not end with the battlefield. It continued after it. For the Roman war machine, captives were more than prisoners. They were wealth, property, spoils of war. After a town collapsed or a rebellion was crushed, surviving men, women, and children could all be taken. Not as citizens, not as refugees, but as assets waiting to be sold. Your weapons are gone.
Your hands are bound alongside strangers. Some prisoners are tied together with heavy rope. Others wear iron restraints. Not everyone is chained like the movies imagine. But nobody here is free. And then begins the march. The part history rarely shows. Long roads, little water, Roman guards watching every movement. No one tells you where you are going, only that you are leaving everything behind. Some captives still believe ransom may come. Others keep searching the crowd for family they may never see again. Because separation was part of the system. And Rome understood something terrifying about conquest. A defeated enemy could become profit. Merchants and slave traders often followed Roman campaigns, waiting for the war to end and the business to begin. And somewhere ahead, beyond the dust, the roads, and the fear, a market is waiting. You are no longer standing in the ruins of war. You are entering the economy of Rome. The battle is behind you, but Rome is not. Most stories skip what comes next. They jump from capture straight to the slave market. But history was slower than that, and far crueler. After defeat came waiting, temporary camps, counting, sorting. Roman officials deciding who was dangerous, who could work, and who could be sold. Not every captive would see Rome. Many vanished into local markets, ports, or distant estates. But for some, especially the strong, the young, and the valuable, the journey continued. And Rome had already built the roads waiting for them. Because Rome was not built by legions alone. It was built by movement. At the height of its power, the empire controlled nearly 85,000 kilometers of engineered roads. Not muddy tribal tracks, not random paths, but stone highways built for power, for armies, for commerce, for empire. And now, for you. You march among strangers, a captive caravan moving through dust and silence.
Hollywood imagines 10 prisoners dragged in heavy chains. Reality was larger, and often worse. Some captives were bound by rope, some at the wrists or neck, some chained. It depended on distance, danger, and the fear of escape. And these caravans were not always small, sometimes dozens, sometimes hundreds. After major campaigns, entire populations could disappear into Rome's slave economy. Julius Caesar himself once sold tens of thousands after conquest. War did not simply destroy lives, it redistributed them. Roman guards watch from horseback. Water is scarce. Food is measured. Your feet burn against roads you have never walked before. Escape? To where? You do not know the land. You do not know the language. And with every mile, home becomes harder to remember. Because these roads carried more than soldiers. They carried the Roman economy itself. Wine, grain, marble, taxes, merchants, and slaves. You are no longer simply a prisoner of war. You are moving through the supply chain of an empire. And then, for the first time, Rome begins to appear. Not all at once, not like a postcard, just fragments. Stone milestones beside the road, traffic of wagons and merchants, smoke rising beyond distant hills, the silhouettes of aqueducts crossing the horizon, tombs and monuments lining the highways, crowds larger than anything you have ever known. And beneath your feet, perhaps the most famous road in the Roman world, the Via Appia. Built in 312 BC, the Queen of Roads. The same road that carried Roman legions toward conquest now carries you toward uncertainty. To Rome, this system is efficiency, order, profit. But to you, it feels like entering another world. A world growing larger with every mile, while you become smaller inside it. And somewhere beyond the dust, beyond the noise, beyond the endless road, a market is waiting. And for the first time in your life, your fate is about to receive a price. The road is over. And for the first time, Rome stops moving you and starts measuring you. Until now, you were captive, defeated, transported, uncertain. But this place changes everything, because this is not prison, and it is not punishment. It is the market, and Rome has learned how to give war a price. Many films imagine Roman slave markets as chaos, cages, screaming crowds, a medieval nightmare. Reality was colder and far more organized, because slavery in Rome was not disorder, it was infrastructure, business. Part of the machinery that kept the empire alive. Before reaching a sale, many captives passed through temporary holding spaces, sorted, counted, separated. Who could work? Who was dangerous? Who carried value? And not every captive reached Rome itself. Some vanished into provincial markets, ports, estates, local trade. But for those entering the markets of Italy, another world waited. sometimes
great promise
public,
for the arena.
sometimes semi-public,
Quick, before the guards
sometimes
arrive. Is that
private.
the gold? Everything is
Sales could happen in courtyards, commercial districts, and trading spaces tied to the economy of the city. Near the commercial heart of Rome, around forums and market zones, people moved the same way goods moved, because visibility mattered. Before someone bought you, they needed to see you. And so, you are displayed, raised above the crowd on a platform, a sale block, not for spectacle, for inspection, a human showroom. Around you, stone and marble, dust rising beneath sandals, heat trapped between bodies, brokers shouting, merchants negotiating, the sound of bargaining filling the air. Not medieval chaos, industrial commerce,
Behold
human
this fine
commerce.
specimen, strong and silent.
Slave merchants, known as mangones,
Make your offers
and traders
now.
move through the crowd with practiced calm. This is routine to them. And then, the inspection begins. Hollywood tells only half the story. This was not humiliation performed for entertainment. It was economic evaluation. A buyer studies your posture, your shoulders, your scars, your hands, the condition of your skin, the strength in your frame, sometimes your teeth, sometimes signs of age, disease, fatigue, endurance. Because in Rome, buying a slave was investment. A healthy body was property. A damaged body was financial risk. And yes, touch was real. Hands testing muscle, turning the body, judging labor before ownership. Sometimes clothing remained. Sometimes parts of the body were exposed. Not desire, not spectacle, economics. And above many slaves hung something called a titulus, a small placard, a label, almost like a specification sheet. Origin, age, skills, defects, legal status. The details of a human life, reduced to market information. Because by now, Rome no longer sees you as enemy or prisoner. Under Roman law, you are property. Ownership can be transferred, recorded, purchased, sold. And this system was enormous. Slavery did not sit at the edge of Rome's economy. It stood inside its center. The empire demanded labor, and war supplied it. Slaves worked everywhere: homes, farms, estates, construction, transport, administration, mines, and skilled trades. Rome did not conquer only for land. It conquered for labor. And sometimes, after major campaigns, the markets flooded. Entire populations entering trade networks almost at once. War and economy were not separate systems. They fed each other. The same empire that moved grain, marble, goods, tax revenue, and military supplies also moved people. Human cargo. And cargo had value. There was no fixed price. A slave's worth changed with age, health, strength, education, skill, origin. An ordinary slave might sell for hundreds, sometimes thousands of sestertii. An educated accountant, a physician, a skilled artisan could cost far more. Because Rome priced both body and usefulness. And here, another myth breaks. Not every slave became gladiator. Most never saw an arena. The arena was different, selective, dangerous, profitable.
And somewhere in this crowd may stand a different kind of buyer, watching more carefully than the others. A Lanista, owner of a gladiator school. He is not searching for obedience or simple labor. He studies aggression, build, health, presence, the possibility of violence people might pay to watch. And suddenly, the market feels quieter because something terrible becomes clear. You are no longer waiting to learn your fate. You are waiting for someone to choose it. This is not society. This is inventory. And somewhere beyond the bargaining, beyond the dust and noise of Rome, your price is about to become your future. The bargaining is over. The voices of the market begin to fade. Someone is still watching. Not a farmer, not a merchant searching for workers. Something about this buyer feels different. His eyes do not study obedience. They study potential. Because this man is a Lanista, and Rome knows his profession well. Hollywood imagines men like him as noble mentors, masters of honor and glory. Reality was colder. A Lanista was not simply a trainer. He was owner, investor, operator, the manager of a brutal business. He purchased fighters, trained them, rented them, profited from them. Because in Rome, the arena was not legend, it was industry. And gladiators were assets, expensive ones. There was a strange contradiction around men like this. A successful Lanista could possess money, connections, even influence, yet his reputation was rarely noble. Some Romans placed his profession beside executioners and other dishonorable trades, because he earned wealth from violence, from blood, from bodies. And now, he is looking at yours. This is where another myth breaks. Not every strong slave became gladiator. Selection mattered. A Lanista was not buying labor. He was buying spectacle. He studies your frame, your height, your symmetry, health, endurance, aggression. Not simply, can you work? But can people pay to watch you fight? Because the arena demanded more than survival. Combat and performance lived together there. A gladiator had to be dangerous, but also marketable. A body capable of violence and spectacle. The transaction itself is quieter than stories imagine. No dramatic hammer, no heroic revelation. Only negotiation. A broker speaking softly, coins changing hands. A decision made with unsettling calm. And then, something unexpected. The restraints change. Perhaps chains removed. Perhaps rope replaced by escort. But this is not freedom. Only transfer. The market has finished its work. Ownership has changed. And that change means everything. Because gladiator schools were real institutions. Ludi. Part barracks, part training ground,
part controlled business property. Some stood near the heart of Rome itself. The most famous, Ludus Magnus, rose near the Colosseum. Inside places like these, fighters lived, trained, ate, recovered, and remained under control. Because another myth survives even today, that gladiators were symbols of freedom, heroes, warriors of honor. The truth is harder. Many gladiators belonged to a class Romans called infames, socially degraded. Some became famous. Crowds cheered them, names spread, fortunes followed victories. But fame was not liberty. An owned fighter was still owned. And training one was expensive. A Lanista invested in food, doctors, equipment, instructors, time. A trained gladiator represented money, which is why death in the arena was not always the goal. Contrary to myth, constant slaughter made poor business. A dead investment earned nothing. And suddenly, the market behind you feels very far away because you understand something new. You were never rescued, and you were never chosen for honor. Rome simply decided that your body might be worth more as a different kind of property. Ahead, beyond the fading noise of trade, waits another world. Not freedom, not glory, a Ludus. And for the first time, the road no longer leads to survival. It leads to becoming a gladiator. You are not learning to fight. You are being rebuilt. Ahead stands the Ludus, a gladiator school. And Rome did not build places like this for mercy. Hollywood imagines gladiator schools as warrior academies, brotherhood, honor. Reality was harder. A Ludus was part prison, part barracks, part combat school, and part business. A controlled system built to turn human bodies into valuable fighters. The most famous of them, Ludus Magnus, stood near the Colosseum itself, built under Emperor Domitian,
Rome.
so close to the arena that underground passages may have linked the two worlds together. Training and spectacle, preparation and blood, connected. And now, you enter that system. Not like a hero, like inventory. The gates close behind you. Guards watch carefully. Because Rome understood something simple. A trained slave was more dangerous than a captured one. So movement is controlled. Orders are constant. Freedom measured. This is not chaos. It is administration. The first shock is not violence. It is routine. You are assigned a place to sleep. Not necessarily a dungeon, but not a home. Small rooms, barrack-like quarters, little privacy. Stone, wood, control. The Ludus is designed for supervision, not comfort. And very quickly, you learn the first rule. Discipline comes before combat. Because a gladiator was expensive, and expensive property required management. Your days begin
Wake up,
early.
captives! Move!
Wake, eat, train, repeat. Again,
Wake up! Line up!
again.
Move it!
Life inside the school follows structure more than rage. almost military. Because Rome was not creating berserkers. It was creating performers who could survive. This is another myth that dies here. Hollywood shows gladiators fighting to the death every day. But real training was systematic, measured, technical. You were not handed a sharpened sword and pushed into chaos. First comes wood. The Ludus, a wooden practice weapon, sometimes heavier than the real blade. Why? Because strength is built through resistance, control through repetition. And then, the polis, a wooden post fixed into the ground. Simple, silent, merciless. Hour after hour, you strike it. Footwork, distance, guard position, attack, defense. Again, again, again. Not glory, repetition. A primitive combat simulator. The post does not bleed, it does not tire, and it does not forgive laziness. Your hands blister, your shoulders burn. Bruises darken the body Rome just purchased. And slowly, something changes. You begin to move without thinking. Because this school is not teaching courage. It is programming reflex. And discipline inside the Ludus was real. Not always cruelty for cruelty's sake, but control. A fighter who disobeyed risked punishment, restrictions, beatings, harsher supervision. Because rebellion threatened investment. Rome did not spend money training men it could not command. And training cost money, more than many people imagined. Food, instructors, equipment, doctors, maintenance. A gladiator was not disposable trash. He was capital, which leads to another surprise: the food. Modern imagination expects endless meat and warrior feasts, but many gladiators were called hordearii, barley men. Their diet relied heavily on barley, grains, beans, legumes. Not because Rome was generous, because carbohydrates build energy, mass, endurance. Some fighters may even have carried a layer of body fat, something Hollywood rarely shows. Protection, reserve, survival. Not every gladiator looked like a marble superhero. And after training, there was medicine. Another truth people rarely hear. Gladiators had doctors, because damaged investments lose value. One of history's most famous physicians, Galen, later gained experience treating gladiators. Cuts, broken bones, wounds. Recovery mattered. Because, contrary to popular myth, Rome did not always want dead fighters. This may be the biggest misconception of all. People imagine arena equals certain death, but economics tells another story. Training was expensive. A skilled fighter could take months, sometimes years, to build, and a dead gladiator earned nothing. So while death absolutely existed, constant slaughter made poor business. The arena demanded spectacle, not mindless waste. And inside the Ludus, you begin seeing how calculated that spectacle really was. Not all fighters were the same. Rome designed styles, identities, opposites. The heavy Murmillo, shield and gladius. The Thraeus, smaller shield and curved blade. The lightly armored Rotirius, net and trident. And the Secutor, helmet shaped specifically to hunt him. These were not random warriors. They were combat roles, built for drama, built for crowd psychology, built to sell excitement. Because this school is teaching you something terrifying. The arena is not simply war. It is entertainment, engineered by empire. And somewhere inside that realization, the deepest transformation begins. Not of muscle, of identity. Your old life grows quieter. Your past becomes distant. Routine replaces memory. Orders replace choice.
Back to work!
Pain becomes ordinary. And the Ludus keeps working. Not merely breaking a human, but rebuilding one into something Rome
Blank.
understands better. A fighter, a performer, a controlled weapon. And as night falls over the stone walls, you finally understand the truth. The market did not decide your future. It only delivered you here. Because the road, the sale, the buyer, none of it was the destination. This was. And somewhere beyond these walls, waiting beneath the shadow of the Colosseum, lies the world you are being prepared to enter. The arena. The Ludus taught you how to strike, but not how to stand here. Before the arena, there is darkness. A tunnel beneath stone. Cold walls. Heavy air. The sound of chains. Footsteps. And somewhere above, Rome. You hear it before you see it. The crowd. Not voices. Something larger. A living noise moving through the earth itself. Thousands waiting. Not for justice, not for honor, for spectacle. And for the first time, your heart begins to race faster than your training. Because this is no battlefield. There are no commanders, no tribe, no homeland behind you. Only the tunnel. And the understanding that everything before this, the market, the chains, the Ludus, was preparing you for one thing: exposure. Some fighters wait in holding rooms beneath the arena. Others stand beneath corridors carved under stone. In places like Rome's great amphitheaters, entire systems existed below the sand. Dark passages, gates, mechanisms. The Empire did not merely build arenas, it engineered spectacle. Sometimes, before combat, fighters were displayed in formal procession, seen, measured, presented to the public. Because the arena was never only combat, it was performance before judgment. Then, the gate opens, and Rome appears. Not the distant Rome of the roads, not the Rome of merchants and markets. This Rome is overwhelming. Sunlight explodes across the sand. Stone walls rise around you. The crowd stretches farther than thought. Heat, dust, movement.
Thousands of eyes.
And suddenly, you understand something. You are not entering a place. You are entering an audience. Across the arena, another fighter waits. Different armor, different fate. Maybe a heavily armored Murmillo, shield raised beneath bronze and iron. Or a lighter Retiarius, armed with net and trident. Different styles, different training, same uncertainty. Inside the arena, violence had structure. Referees existed. The sumo Ludus watched closely, staff in hand, able to separate fighters, control the pace, and oversee surrender. This was not chaos. It was regulated violence. And when a fighter was overwhelmed, there could still be choice. A raised finger, a plea for mercy. Missio. Sometimes granted, sometimes denied. And the crowd was never silent.
Because the arena did not sell combat alone. It sold participation, emotion, suspense. The feeling that thousands shared power over a single moment. But none of that feels important now. Not the rules, not the economics, not the empire. Because statistics disappear when steel is near your throat. The sand beneath your feet feels too bright. Breathing shortens. Training takes over where courage fails. This is not legend, not montage, not heroic fantasy. Only survival. And one brutal truth. You were trained to perform, but your body still fights for something older than Rome. To live. And this is where the legend usually begins. But history tells a more uncomfortable story. Because Rome did not create gladiators to celebrate freedom. It created them to sustain spectacle. Most gladiators were not heroes chasing glory. Many were slaves, war captives,
Criminals, or people trapped inside systems larger than themselves. Some became famous. Some earned wealth. A few even gained freedom. But fame never erased the foundation beneath it. In Roman law, a gladiator could still be property, an owned fighter, a valuable body inside a profitable machine. And that contradiction mattered. Because Rome had built something larger than combat. An industry. Lanista earned profit. Sponsors earned popularity. Crowds purchased excitement. And the empire received something harder to measure. Attention. Loyalty. Distraction. The arena was not random violence. It was organized spectacle. A system where conquest, ownership, and entertainment became connected. War produced captives. Captives became labor. Some labor became spectacle. And spectacle became business. That is the truth beneath the sand. Not merely heroes, not merely victims, but human beings transformed into performance. And maybe that is why gladiators still remain inside our imagination. Not because they were invincible, but because they stood inside a machine larger than themselves and fought anyway.
So now, after the chains, the market, the Ludus, and the arena, I want to ask you one thing. At what moment did he truly stop being free? Was it the battlefield, the market, or the moment survival became entertainment? Drop your answer in the comments, because maybe the most uncomfortable truth about Rome is not that it created gladiators, but that it learned how to turn human lives into spectacle. And if this journey changed the way you see history, subscribe, because history feels different when you stop watching it and step inside it.